Mushrooms also have some other anti-cancer mechanisms, like they work on a specific gene called P53 tumor suppressor gene. And so you want more of that tumor suppressor gene present, and mushrooms can help to induce that, which is really cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us for another amazing episode of Bioenergetics Beat. I'm Heather Gray, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified bioenergetic practitioner. And today's episode is brought to you by Nikki, Unleash the Wellness Within. It's a non-invasive, easily affordable, and highly effective approach to optimize wellness. It's a wearable device that puts frequency-based better life in your hands and on your wrist. Make sure to stick to the very, very end. You're not going to want to, because if the majority of the people that we have on the show, you're going to want to hear everything they have to say. But today's guests, we have a secret giveaway, not secret, we have a giveaway, right? So you're not going to want to miss anything that our guest has to say, and you're not going to want to miss the information about the giveaway. So to make sure to listen to the very end. In the meanwhile, let's welcome Dr. Anna Sitkoff to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So glad to have you. I love talking about plant medicine, especially mushrooms and integrative medicine, and it's all the right words. But I found out that, people who are usually in the medical profession that are kind of talking about these more controversial types of remedies usually have some sort of story. So I'd love to hear a little bit about you, your background, how you became a doctor, and why are we talking about mushrooms?
Sure. Yeah. I grew up with two parents who had chronic disease. My dad had chronic lymphocytic leukemia. My mom had and still has chronic Lyme disease. And I always watched them going to naturopathic doctors, acupuncturists, energy healers, kind of everything under the sun, in addition to their conventional medical doctors. And I first had a real interest in nutrition, and mushrooms was like an aspect of that training. I have my undergraduate degree in uh, nutrition sciences. But when my dad was going through chemotherapy, he had a Chinese medical doctor who he was seeing who prescribed medicinal mushroom blend. And I got very interested. I had been studying herbal medicine at the time as well. And I felt like that mushroom piece was really missing from my education. Like I just didn't know enough. And that curiosity and interest really dragged me into this whole world of mushroom medicine. And I started teaching classes about medicinal mushrooms. I moved to the Pacific Northwest where there is mushroom abundance. And I really wanted to find a career where I had the authority to prescribe nutrition and exercise and mushrooms and herbs. And naturopathic medicine was kind of the perfect combination of all of those things. And while I was in naturopathic medical school, I had the opportunity to do laboratory research, and I had an amazing mentor who said I could choose whatever mushrooms I wanted and whatever cancer cells I wanted. There is a huge vat of all different kinds of cancer cells at Bastyr University, where I went to naturopathic medical school, and I chose lymphocytic leukemia cells, which
Mm.
was a very important part of my grieving journey. My dad actually died before I started medical school. And so to do this cancer research was really meaningful and really therapeutic for me. And there was a mushroom that grew in abundance in the forest near my school where I went called the Rosy Polypore. And so I did research on that mushroom, and that really kind of enlightened my research laboratory knowledge, that side of the mushroom world, where previously, like when I was teaching classes, it was a lot about mushroom ID in the forest and breaking them down, making medicine with them, but not as much the clinical research side of things. So that really opened my world and my mind even more about mushrooms. Um, And then I had a few different other opportunities while in medical school, like writing the medicinal mushrooms chapter in the textbook of natural medicine, and really just continuing to see how mushrooms could be valuable in the clinic, in the Bastyr clinic where I was as a student. And yeah, the mushroom world has just kind of continued to have me, and I'm always learning something new. And now, as a naturopathic doctor with my private practice, I'm a primary care physician, and so I get to use mushrooms all the time and really see how they impact patients on a day-to-day level, and also like watch as labs change. And it's like I think my journey has been so kind of linear in this field of nutrition, herbs, mushrooms, naturopathic medicine, and yeah, so here I am, still doing the work.
Well, how freaking cool are you? Like, I knew there was had to have been a story there. And I was mistaken at first when we started. I was thinking we were talking about like magic mushrooms. No, you're talking about medicinal mushrooms, which I also love. Like, I was just got done telling you that before we got on here that I'm in the middle of a divorce. And during that same month in December, I went through a divorce, I changed jobs and had surgery for a deviated septum. And so I knew I was going to be dealing with a lot of brain inflammation. And the first thing I grabbed for, can you guess?
Lion's mane.
Lion's mane, absolutely. And I have been swearing by that for the past 3 months. Like it legitly has given me my brain back to the point where I'm actually functioning because I know firsthand with my level of what do they call it, priming events, and uh, the inflammation in the brain that kind of stress immediately causes that kind of a response in my brain. And so thank God for the mushrooms. Thank God for lion's
Yeah.
mane. So what are some of your, so what mushroom, say that name again of the mushroom that you were playing around with? Like I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, it's not a well-known medicinal mushroom at all. And that's also one of the reasons I wanted to do research on it, was because there wasn't much out there, but it's called the Rosy Polypore.
Rosy Polypore, I love it. I
Yeah.
also work for a pretty famous cancer doctor, breast cancer doctor, and
Hmm.
she talks about medicinal mushrooms quite often. And it warms my heart to see so many, this word getting out there. And that's why we like doing these podcasts, is to kind of help spread that along as well. I want to dive in deeper, but let's take a quick break real quick. When we come back, I want to dive into the topic today, which is medicinal mushrooms and integrative medicine, how to properly use medicine for chronic illness. I also would love, because you said that you have your mom with a history of Lyme, and we have, one of the big reasons that the wave one is the one it started and then it became a Nikki is because it has a Lyme set of frequencies. So
Hmm.
the Lyme world is very, very important to us. And then you mentioned Lyme. So I want to dive in deeper to that as well, if you don't mind. So everybody stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back.
It's a very debilitating mind, body, soul, and spirit. So I was trying to find anything I could to keep my spirits higher. And I found this YouTube channel called the Tick Chicks. And she had the inventor of the Nikki on. And I said, I need that. Like, that is going to be the key to helping me go forward. Like I feel like I'm stuck. I'm not moving forward. And I feel like this is going to be the key. And the first thing I did was I bought the Nikki, and I have not looked back. It's the best thing I could have ever done. It was the missing piece. I immediately started to notice changes immediately. Within a week, I would say the inflammation in my body went down exponentially. And my right knee, I could never extend it fully. Like it would just like stop at one point, and I could never fully like extend my leg. Well, one morning I was noticing I was able to roll on my back and extend my legs completely flat. And I said, oh my goodness, I have not been able to do that in years and years. I would say the only complaint I have about Nikki is that I have to take it off to charge it.
Nikki Wellness Technology. Delivering frequency enhanced health. We are Nikki.com.
Fantastic. Thanks again for joining us. I'm super excited to dive in deeper. Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about the mushroom and specifically that you were studying against your father's type of cancer. And then I'd love to talk a little bit more about some of your other favorite ones. What's the mechanism? Why are they so powerful and how do they work? And yeah, if we can also tie in Lyme at some point in this conversation, that'd be great.
Yeah, let's get into all of the above. So, the Rosy Polypore or Fomitopsis cagendari, we were doing laboratory research. So, this was not on humans, these were not clinical trials. We are looking at the two different types of extraction methods. So, water is going to extract different medicinal compounds than alcohol. Water extracts the polysaccharides, which are the main immune modulating compounds found in mushrooms. And so the hypothesis was that the water extract of Fomitopsis cagendari or Rosy Polypore was going to have an immune stimulating effect, that it was going to promote an increase in certain cytokines like IL-12 that would then stimulate your main antiviral, anti-cancer defenses, which that hypothesis was true. And then the other extraction method, so with alcohol, we're expecting it to extract lanthanum triterpene glycosides. These are these special alcohol soluble compounds found in mushrooms. People might be familiar with other kinds of terpenes, often found in like cannabis, but all sorts of plants have terpenes. They're just a certain kind of secondary metabolite. And so mushrooms have these triterpene glycosides that are extracted in alcohol, also in fat. And those compounds are going to have more direct cytotoxic effects on cancer cells. And that's what we hypothesized, and that's what we found to be true.
Yeah, I mean, because even in the cannabis industry, that was part of what they were doing was taking a lot of these terpenes and, isolating and figuring out which kinds were best for, cancer type stuff. And so I absolutely love where we're going with plant medicine. And pretty soon, we've been isolating so many different things that we're going to be able to really dial in and like individualize, a person's journey with a plant. I'm also a huge fan though of not necessarily, taking out. So what are your thoughts on like whole plant medicine compared to, right, extracting some of these different pieces out? Do you know what I'm trying to
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I call that constituentism.
say?
It's just like a very reductionist view, I think, and like way of using plant medicine, mushroom medicine. I think that molecules in plants and mushrooms work synergistically, and it's important to consider that when using them. And so, if you have the option of using an isolated beta glucan or polysaccharide supplement instead of a mushroom supplement, I would say just use the mushrooms, because there's other compounds in the mushrooms that are also going to be beneficial that might help with absorption of beta glucans. Um, so, and I think that's true generally for most plants. It's like we're so much more than just one molecule that somebody decided to do research on. And so because that research has been done, it's decided that that's the most important molecule, but there's like so many other compounds that there just hasn't been research on, so then it's just ignored.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more then about kind of the research that you were doing with that specific mushroom and like your dad's type of cancer.
Yeah, so the alcohol extract of that mushroom, which had the triterpene glycosides that I mentioned, the cancer cells that we tested the cytotoxicity on was the lymphocytic leukemia cells, that extract had cytotoxic effects. So it killed those cancer cells better than the control, and the control was just plain alcohol. So
Funny.
yeah, and then there's students at Bastyr now that have continued that research on other kinds of cancer cell lines, including breast cancer and possibly other cancer cell lines that I'm not aware of, but it's been pretty effective. So, I mean, laboratory research is very different than a trial that's like on an animal or human, but it's still like that's where it all starts. And so
So what about it can actually kill cancer cells? Like, can you dive in a little bit deeper into the science of it or?
yeah, so there's a few different ways. The triterpenes have a direct cytotoxic effect. So they're specifically inducing apoptosis in cancer cells, like cancer cell death, which is really cool. Mushrooms also have some other anti-cancer mechanisms, like they work on a specific gene called P53 tumor suppressor gene. And so you want more of that tumor suppressor gene present, and mushrooms can help to induce that, which is really cool. And then on the side of the beta glucans or the polysaccharides, it's like they're actually stimulating our immune system to produce more cytotoxic T cells and natural killer cells, which are our main anti-tumor defense mechanisms. So yeah, there's a lot of different mechanisms there. And then there's another enzyme that certain mushrooms can induce called caspase-3, which is important in tumor cell death as well.
That's incredible. No, because when you said cytokine, the first place my brain goes from being a 27-year Lyme disease patient, is like mast cell type stuff, cytokine storage. So I'm like, cytokines, wow,
Yeah,
I'm
we
trying
want
to keep those down.
Yeah, and there's all different kinds of cytokines, right? Cytokines are it's just like the way that our cells communicate. It's just like molecules that promote other like cell movement in the body. And so cytokines like IL-12 are going to be inducing more natural killer cells and cytotoxic T cells, which is what we want. Other cytokines might stimulate more of an inflammatory response. Some cytokines will stimulate more of an anti-inflammatory response. So
Oh,
cytokines aren't
very
all
cool.
bad. Yeah.
Okay. Well, just like, we talk about inflammation and it's like, no, not all inflammation is bad. There's a reason for it.
Exactly.
It's there for a reason. It's when it's out of control is when we start to
Yeah.
have problems. So, okay, cool. I know with herbs, the herbs have a tendency to work better if you kind of pulse on and off them. You're not supposed to be on them for a really long period of time. How is it with mushrooms? Is it something similar, or can you just take mushroom, can I be taking lion's mane for the next 6 months, no problem?
You can take lion's mane for the next 6 months, no problem. It's going to work better if you continue to use the lion's mane. A lot of the research on lion's mane actually shows that when you stop using it, it stops working. So keep using your lion's mane.
Okay.
With the mushroom, and that's kind of more like lion's mane specific for brain function, for memory. That's talking about that. Lion's mane is used for some other things as well, but when we're talking about it for brain function, continuous use is generally recommended. As far as immune function goes, I do recommend that people do like a loading dose and then a therapeutic dose. So the loading dose would look like 3 grams a day, like 1 gram 3 times a day on an empty stomach, just with a big glass of water. And that would be for about a month. And then after that loading dose, you can expect that there's been a certain amount of immune training that has happened where you can take less, but your immune system is still going to have an immune modulatory, like regulated response from that initial loading of beta glucans. Some research shows that with that immune training from beta glucans, you can even just like stop taking the beta glucans altogether, and your immune system will continue to be stronger for up to a year.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible.
I
I
know.
don't know if you see me over here scribbling away at
Yeah.
notes. Like, this is the first time in a long time I've actually taken notes from a guest. Like, this is incredible. I was like so super excited. So then, okay, this actually segues really well into the Lyme disease stuff as we're talking about, boosting the immune system. So what kind of, because I imagine you've probably been looking into that as well to kind of help your mom out. What are some of the different strands out there of mushrooms that help Lyme and why and all that fun stuff?
When I think about Lyme disease and a lot of chronic infectious disease generally, I really have a view about keeping and maintaining a strong terrain, tonifying the systems of the body, and mushrooms do just that. Yes, they have specific antiviral actions and they can help with chronic viral infections, but mostly I love talking about them as far as their ability to tonify the organs of detoxification and just kind of the general systems overall that are often so affected by chronic Lyme disease, right? It's like with chronic Lyme, there's a lot of nervous system issues. There's often anxiety and depression. There's the pins and needles tingling. There's muscle aches. It's like every symptom under the sun, it really affects every system in the body. And so mushrooms can be really helpful for tonifying those systems and making it so those effects are not as present. Mushrooms don't have a specific like anti-Borrelia action. Oftentimes, though, as you probably know with Borrelia, there's chronic Epstein-Barr virus and more propensity towards HPV and herpes and all these other viral infections. And mushrooms really shine there in killing the viruses, stopping replication, and then also tonifying the system. So I can go into kind of the different body systems and how mushrooms help to support and tonify those if that feels helpful.
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'm like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, ooh, so which one would you suggest? And
Yeah.
obviously you've got a company, and I'm going to ask too by the end if you have an affiliate, because I would love to sign up for that, because I am just, like I said, such a huge fan of the more natural ways of dealing with things and supporting the body, especially things like mushrooms and herbs. And it's a conversation that's after my own heart. So I'm super excited.
Yeah.
Yes, dive in,
Yeah,
dive in.
great. Okay. So, yeah, let's just start with the nervous system then. And as you know and have been experiencing, lion's mane can be really helpful. Oftentimes with Lyme and Lyme co-infections, there's going to be that nervous system aspect. There's going to be some numbness, maybe some pins and needles tingling, maybe some other kinds of depression, anxiety, brain fog kind of symptoms. And lion's mane can be helpful for counteracting some of those symptoms. And it really helps to, though, tonify the nervous system. So keeping the nervous system kind of stronger generally over time. And I think that lion's mane in combination with other kinds of herbs for the nervous system, like Baikal skullcap or kudzu, like those really tend to combine quite well. Oftentimes with chronic Lyme disease or chronic fatigue syndrome, there's some cortisol dysregulation aspect to that. And reishi mushroom or Ganoderma lucidum, which is the mushroom of immortality, can be really helpful for normalizing cortisol levels. It can be helpful for both that morning time fatigue, but also helping your nervous system to get into a more relaxed state at night to help you enter into a more deep sleep and can help with yeah, any kind of anxiety later in the day. And the um, other kind of mechanism of action of lion's mane that's often kind of ignored and not considered is the beneficial effects that it has on the intestines and the gut microbiome. So intestinal inflammation, microbiome dysbiosis in the intestines can play a huge role in your overall immune health and how you feel in the world and your nervous system health as well. And so lion's mane can help to decrease inflammation within the intestines. And it also, like all mushrooms that I'll be talking about today, have these beta glucans or polysaccharides as one of their main active compounds. And those polysaccharides are prebiotic. And so when you're taking a mushroom like lion's mane, you will be getting all of those prebiotic polysaccharides and feeding your good gut bacteria, increasing the amount of good bacteria like bifidobacteria and lactobacillus, which are really important for butyrate production, which is an important short chain fatty acid for immune regulation. So, the way that the mushrooms impact the digestive system, I think, is really important and a huge part of how they benefit the overall human system and immune health. Kind of going through some other systems. So,
Hold on real quick though.
yeah.
Because like with other, I know I'm just so excited.
Yeah,
Like,
please ask
with
questions.
so you said with the immune loading that it should be on an empty stomach, but I noticed that a lot of like there's mushroom coffees and stuff out there like that. And I've been putting my lion's mane in my mushroom in my coffee in the morning. Like, is there a benefit to that, or should I really be doing that on an empty stomach?
For nervous system, specifically, lion's mane with food is totally fine. A
Okay.
lot of the research on lion's mane for memory, mood, nervous system issues, it's with food. And so as long as you're getting that 2 grams a day,
Okay.
make sure you're getting that 2 grams. Then,
I
um,
think I'm only getting one. I'll have to look, but I'm not opposed to upping it. I absolutely swear by it. Like my nervous system, I have an overactive startle response, especially when I start to get into fight or flight and I know my nervous system is out of sync. And through this whole mess, like for the most part, I've been able to keep things together for the first time ever. So between using the stress, one on here, and then I use a little ME support from Cellcore, it helps kind of deal with emotions. And then my lion's mane. And I really think that that's been the trifecta. And of course, some breath work and meditation. But it's been really the thing that's helped get me over the hump through this really stressful period.
yeah, that's great. Sounds like, yeah, you might benefit from a little reishi thrown in there also.
I was thinking about that when you were talking about it. I was like, ooh, reishi. And so that also leads me to another question. Like
Yeah.
every one of these mushrooms have got such amazing benefits. Like, how, are, is there a benefit to taking a couple different kinds, or should you stick to a couple ones separately for certain specific times? Like, how do you work that?
Mushrooms are such kind of community organisms. Like if you think of just how they are in the world, it's like they're connecting really the entire world. They're
Yep.
connecting the forest and they're connecting like everything underneath us is really connected by mycelium. And so, anyway, that does translate into how to use them, and they do tend to work better in combination. So, I usually recommend using at least like 2 or 3 mushrooms in a formula. You can get away with using maybe up to 5. I highly dislike the formulas that have like 20 different mushrooms in them. I think it ends up diluting each individual mushroom, and then you're just like not getting a therapeutic dose of any of them. And it's like a kitchen sink mushroom formula is not always best just because they work better together. I think that the formulations, which is why I made my company, is like
I was gonna say that's a
the
perfect segue.
yeah,
Let's
the
because we've only got about
formulation.
5-10 minutes left.
Oh,
So let's
yeah.
let's talk about your company, why you formulate and how you're different. So yeah.
Yes, I made my mushroom formulas so that I had specific formulas that were based on current research and historical use in the right dosages with high quality mushrooms so that I could prescribe something like that I trusted to my patients because I saw that that was missing in the supplement space. And so the formulas that we have at Lucidum Medicinals, which me and my husband own together, and our good friend Mikhail, those formulas, right now we've got 3 different body systems that we're supporting, and there's more formulas in the works, but we have a brain and nerves formula and a immune formula and a lungs formula. And I will say there is a lot of overlap, and I'm honestly often prescribing my immune formula to patients who I'm treating for hormone dysregulation because the mushrooms in the immune formula also help to regulate sex hormones and can help to improve testosterone levels and normalize ovulatory cycles. And so, because, like you mentioned earlier, it's like there's so many mushrooms that have so many different mechanisms of action. There is often a lot of overlap in what you can be using for what. Do you want me to get into kind of which mushrooms are in my formulas, or what do we have time for?
Yeah, no, we've got a few more minutes. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Yeah. So in the brain and nerves formula, we have lion's mane and oyster mushroom and tremella, which are 2 that we haven't talked about very much. And maybe in like a 1 minute period of time, I can try to get into a little bit. But tremella can help to increase brain matter volume in the brain. And then oyster is actually one of my favorite mushrooms, specifically for a compound that it has called ergothioneine, which I think can be very helpful for chronic Lyme disease and any chronic disease. Ergothioneine is a really strong antioxidant, and it works as a backup system to glutathione. It's very easily absorbed into the bloodstream, and our cells can kind of hold on to it for up to a month as a backup system in cases where there's a lot of exposure to different kinds of toxins or where there's going to be a lot of oxidative stress in the body. So, and it easily crosses the blood-brain barrier. So I love oyster mushroom and love that brain and nerves formula. Um, our immune formula has reishi, turkey tail, and maitake, which are my 3 go-to mushrooms for any kind of chronic Epstein-Barr virus, chronic HPV, herpes simplex. Love that formula. All of my cancer patients who are also going through chemotherapy are on that formula, and it really helps to keep their immune system strong and prevent some of the side effects of chemotherapy while improving quality of life and having its own anti-cancer mechanisms. And then the lungs formula is reishi and cordyceps and oyster mushroom. And that, again, speaking of Lyme disease and chronic disease, the kind of impact on endurance and exercise fatigue and lung capacity, that lungs formula can really be so helpful there.
Huh, that's absolutely incredible. I am just like, my head is buzzing and spinning in a wonderful way. So let's get to the shameless plug time of the show. So then where can people find more information about your mushroom mixes?
Yeah, lucidummedicinals.com is our website. And then to learn more about me, drannasitkoff.com. And I have a blog where I really delve deep into all kinds of mushroom science. And yeah, so there's a whole rabbit hole there.
Yeah, absolutely. Rabbit hole indeed. That's part of the reason why, like, I've got this list on my wall of all the different mushrooms and what they impact, and I just haven't quite taken that leap yet because I know once you go down that hole, like it goes deep.
Oh yeah,
I
I'm
just
still in
haven't.
it,
Yeah.
15 years deep.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. See, I was just like, I don't know if I have time for that. I'm trying to learn Espanol right now, so I don't know. Um, that's awesome. I can't thank you enough for joining us today and sharing your wisdom. Thank you so much. And is there any last little pearls that you'd like to share with us before we sign off?
My biggest mushroom pearl is just make sure that if you're eating them as food and getting them for medicine mostly that way, just make sure that you're cooking them well.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Good to know. Also, make sure while you're visiting Dr. Anna's site, also to go visit wearenikki.com/podcast, enter in BioBeats for 10% off. And because we really love our customers, we want to show our appreciation. We give away a free Nikki device and wellness set of frequencies, a $598 value on every episode. So make sure to go check out the show notes and enter. Good luck to you. And thanks for joining us. Have a healthy day.
My favorite frequencies when I use the Nikki is obviously the pain frequency. That's what I started with. And to tell you that the difference in my life was unreal. I was not able to do the things I wanted to do. And after, using this pain frequency just for about a day, I went out about 36 hours later from slipping the thing on my wrist. And I was able to load my van, which involves all kinds of solar generators, 100 pounds each, all this other type of stuff, climb up and down the ladder. I went out and I decided since I can't cut the grass, I'm going to see what happens there. So I cut all the grass, didn't have to stop, came in, felt a little bit, but not much at all. So that pain frequency was the main one for me. And since then, I've been using the nighttime frequency. I've used the stress frequency some when I have my Nikki on, and I'm a minister by trade as well. Used to be a tennis pro. I've given that up because of my leg, but maybe get back to it now because I feel like I can do all these things. But at any rate, when I would feel stress coming on, try to stress to see how that worked, and that seems to be very helpful as well. I cannot say enough how much my life has been literally changed. I mean, we went out to we were planning our trip. I said I was loading the van. That was for us to head out west. We were going out to do Angel's Landing at Zion. And the problem with me and all the problems I was having was that I didn't know if I was going to make it up to the place where you have to have a lottery. And if you don't have the lottery and you don't get up to the 2 mile point, then nobody in your group can do that hike. And so I was worried to death that something was going to happen to my leg. But with the Nikki on, I've been doing really good. And crazy enough, I kept up with my 25-year-old son-in-law who is in great shape, and they hike all the time. And I made it all the way up to the top, no problem. We made it up to Angel's Landing and back down, and then went out and did other hikes, the arches, Delicate Arch. So it gave me back my life, what I wanted to be able to do. And I'm so thankful for that. So thankful to Nikki and all of you all for what you're putting out there. I think it's something that's a blessing to many.
Nikki Wellness Technology. delivering frequency-enhanced health. We are Nikki.com. The views, information, and opinions expressed in this content are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of FreeMedica. FreeMedica Technologies, Inc. and its employees are not responsible, nor verifies accuracy any of the information contained in the following content. The primary purpose of this content is to educate and inform. This content does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services.